China said it would own the future: electric vehicles, battery dominance, and global green tech leadership. It was supposed to be the crown jewel of China's economic rise, but they lied. The factories are silent, the cars abandoned, millions of sold vehicles rusting in fields, never driven, never wanted. A $1 trillion industry rotting from the inside out. What started as a race to dominate EVs has become a financial disaster. Fake numbers, phantom demand, a brutal collapse disguised as victory. And here's the kicker: this isn't just about cars, it's about China's entire economy and the myth of its unstoppable rise. So before you say China's winning the EV war, watch this, because this is how an empire falls, one rusted battery at a time. This image, taken from a drone, might look like something you'd see in Russia, as Putin scrambles to make up for his tank and vehicle losses by breaking old units out of storage. But it's not anywhere near there. It's in Hangzhou, China, and these aren't the vehicles of the past. Instead, this is the image of a future that was supposed to be, but won't be. There's not much that makes Elon Musk worry, but the electric cars coming off China's assembly lines did. Companies like BYD and Candy Technologies looked like they were about to drive Tesla right out of the EV market and own the future of the world's automobiles. In the end, Elon Musk worried too much. This drone footage is old, at least by drone footage standards. It's from 2023, and it went under the radar for a while. But the truth was starting to come out as 2025 kicked off. Reuters probably had the best headline: China is sending its world-beating auto industry into a tailspin. So, what's happening here? China's big automakers like BYD and Candy have been dumping cars onto gray market dealers. The dealers would then mark the cars as being used, even though there were exactly 0 miles, or kilometers for our metric system fans out there, on the odometer. And you don't need to stay in China to find drone footage. There are plenty of sites like this overseas. The cars get shipped and then get tagged with license plates and registrations to count them as sold. That Hangzhou footage? You haven't even begun to see it all. That one image doesn't do it justice. The empty cars cover a space of 15,000 square meters, and that's just one plot, on one dealer lot, in one city. At least half a dozen Chinese cities are home to ghost lots just like this. Now that's one truly fearsome Halloween horror story. So what's going on here? Why are these ghost lots materializing out of the ether just like Chinese ghost cities? Why the gray market dealers? Why the odometer hocus pocus? Well, it's not like the plot of The Exorcist. It's really more like a story out of Scooby-Doo. When the mask comes off, the face would look a lot like Xi Jinping's. China always had an uneasy relationship with capitalism. Deng Xiaoping and the guys that came after him decided that it was glorious to get rich. But Xi is a lot more like Mao, even though Mao packed him off to a labor camp when he was young. And why Xi feels the need to ape the guy who persecuted him? Your guess is as good as ours. Anyway, like Mao, Xi thinks he knows better than the market, so his regime is more centralized. He thinks it's the best way to make sure that China leads in the industries and technologies of the future. The EV industry was one of those sectors. It made sense, since the United States, Europe, and Japan had a head start for a century. Chinese policymakers knew their country would be unlikely to get a foothold in the traditional gas-powered car market. The EV industry, on the other hand, was young and could host a new player. In a vacuum, it was a good decision to go all in. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Xi's regime scared off foreign investors, and subsidies from Beijing came in their place. The Chinese government heavily funded the EV car makers like BYD. And what happens when you get free money to do nothing? You do more of it. The Chinese government wanted cars, so it would get cars. The country's EV makers would then register their cars, pack them off somewhere, and claim that they were sold. Then they sent the invoices to Beijing, which gives them more money. It worked for a while, but just like with all those empty apartments, you can't fake the car sales forever. The ghost apartments pile up, and the ghost cars are now piling up too. Just how bad does it get? Thanks to Xi's bubble machine, a whopping 60 new EV companies opened their doors in China between 2014 and 2019. The pandemic hit the pause button on the bubble for a little while, but then the people of China got tired of being locked inside their homes, sometimes without food or medical supplies, because one person somewhere in their neighborhood started sneezing. So the pandemic magically ended and the bubble machine started to rip again. The bubble got bigger, faster. EV factories sprouted up all around China as the country celebrated how it was becoming the hub of the industries of tomorrow. Across the Pacific, the United States was getting worried. By 2022 and 2023, China had enough capacity to produce 55 million electric vehicles a year. Impressive! It even made China the world's largest car-producing country. Who would have seen that coming 100 years ago? It was a sign of China's new status in the world, which was really its old status, the Middle Kingdom, the center of things. There was just one problem. Those 55 million cars were twice as many as the Chinese market was actually demanding. And the bubble just kept getting bigger. We still need to wait for the final numbers to come in, but it looks like the amount of cars lying around China could be 3 times as much as the actual demand for them by the time you're making your New Year's Eve plans. But wait, there's more. Xi's only the top player. China's local governments had their own EV bubble machines. This June, the city of Guangzhou mandated that 3 new EV manufacturers come online. Just like that. Each one had to make 500,000 cars a year, and they'd make bank to do it. Guangzhou was offering about $70 million per year to any company that could build a new assembly line and pump out the cars. And the fad doesn't stop in Guangzhou. 6 other provinces were offering money too. You know it's bad when Xi has to acknowledge reality and level criticism at his own country. As early as 2023, he was complaining about the tendency for China's provinces to rush into the same industry, like electric vehicles, and now AI. True, but he should start by looking at himself in the mirror. If he asked himself why he feels the need to pull a Mao and be the boss all the time, he might be able to avoid things like this in the future. But it's way too late to stop China's EV industry from becoming a complete mess. In 2024, China's automakers could produce twice as many EV cars as they could actually sell. But that's just in all cars. As far as EV goes, the imbalance gets even greater. There were between 660,000 and 850,000 of them sitting on dealer lots in just 4 months this year. It's like a zombie apocalypse. And those particular vehicles were just the first wave. A wave that was cresting like a tsunami, like all those zombies steadily climbing over the wall in World War Z. By this June, there was an unused electric vehicle inventory of 3.5 million units. How are these cars supposed to be cleared off the lots? The logical answer would be to ship the units overseas, but that's easier said than done, to put it mildly. The United States and European Union won't buy them, even at bargain basement prices. President Trump is the captain of tariffs, after all, and that means these cars can't go overseas. So what's left for them to do? Before we go down that rabbit hole, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps us to keep reporting about trends like this you won't see on your nightly news broadcast or on your social media algorithm. Anyway, with high-income places like the United States, European Union, and Japan out of the mix, China's EV makers have limited options. Where will the cars be sold? South Korea? Probably too small. Russia? It can't afford them since Putin's special military operation has driven the economy there into a tailspin of high inflation and high interest rates. India? There's been a lot of beef between them recently, so why would New Delhi throw Beijing a golden parachute? Fat chance. It also has high tariffs. Besides, the people at large there are not well off. India's 2024 GDP per capita was only about $2,697. Even at the vastly reduced prices you're about to see, an EV from China is just too far out of reach. China knows all this, so it's trying to develop alternate marketplaces. Southeast Asia, Latin America, even Africa. It's almost like China's a character from A Nightmare on Elm Street, desperately looking for a way to escape the Freddy Krueger it's created. But these escape routes are just mirages. The marketplaces are simply too small to fulfill the demand, and they won't mature enough in time. So there's only one place left for China's EV makers to go. They can sell their cars to their countrymen, but that's a bit of a challenge. Xi might want China to be a more consumer-driven society, but he was still looking at a record trade surplus in 2024. China exported almost $1 trillion more than it imported last year. That's because China's GDP per capita was only about $13,000 in 2023. That's flatlined since the pandemic too, precisely the time when the EV craze started to go into overdrive. Let's go deeper. Just how much does an EV from China cost anyway? There's no better place to look than at the industry leader BYD. The low-cost car, the Seagull, is under $8,000. The higher-end model is the Kinel, which BYD is trying to position as a competitor to Tesla's Model 3. It seems like a bargain, too. Elon Musk's put a price at $35,000 for his Model 3. BYD's supposed Model 3 killer EV, though? You can get it for a mere $16,500. Throw in an additional $2,000 and you get the BYD Titanium 3. But this is still out of reach for a lot of people in China. And just how many Kinels does one better-off Chinese family need anyway? And it gets a lot worse than that. These prices are lower than they used to be. If you were shopping for a BYD car back in 2023, you'd have noticed something peculiar. The yuan on the price tag would have been going down a lot, and it didn't stop that year. BYD has cut prices on some models by 34% just this year. It wasn't just because of the Chinese government's encouragement to make as many cars as possible, at least not directly. The Chinese government pushed a lot of different car makers to come into the market, so they all compete with each other. China's been too successful in the EV craze. Aside from BYD and Kandi, there are companies like NIO, Xpeng, Geely, and Chery. In 2023, they all started to get in on the price-dropping act to compete with each other. The result? The average price of a new Chinese-made EV dropped by 19% in just 2 years. That's not the result of some new innovation. It's desperation, and short-sighted desperation. Just think about it. If you were a consumer, and you have been, what would you do if you saw the price of something continuing to drop? You'd hold out for a while longer, right? Let's say you want something today, but think you might save 10% by waiting until tomorrow. Unless you need it right this second, you'll probably wait until tomorrow. And why tomorrow? Next month, it might be 20% off what it is now, or more. So people wait. The price continues to drop, and the EV makers think they need to drop prices even more to compete with each other, as more and more cars pop off the assembly lines. This means that car dealers in China have needed to sell some of the product at 20% off the MSRP just to start with. And who do they sell them to? Not to Chinese people, but to gray market dealers like Z-Car, which often sells cars at a loss to draw in customers. If this was a free market economy, the car makers would go belly up and end the misery. But since this is Xi Jinping's China, the car makers keep going, supported by government subsidies to make more cars, which makes the price drop even further. So, what's the bottom line, literally? Reuters reported that according to the China Automobile Dealers Association, by August of this year, only 30% of China's EV car makers were actually profitable. 70% were in the red. But they still linger on, like some ghost on Halloween night. And there's still more to this horror story than the specter of zombie cars sitting on the lot. It's little wonder why some Chinese people are calling the fiasco their country's Evergrande on wheels. What's that supposed to mean? Evergrande was once one of China's biggest property developers. Then it went bankrupt and was dissolved in 2024. The company might be gone, but all the unused apartments it built are still there. No matter how much the Chinese government tried to prop up its real estate markets, it couldn't stop the giant's collapse. Now the EV industry faces the same fate. China currently has, get this, 129 EV manufacturers. By 2030, probably only 15 will still be around. Some people say it will only be 8. That's a necessary correction, but it will leave a lot of chaos along the way. Lost tax revenue, loss of jobs, and opportunities from China's already suffering young people. The auto industry alone makes up 1/10 of China's GDP. It stretches deep into the country's supply chain. Start with the batteries. Millions of Chinese workers are laboring at the factories building the batteries for those cars. Then there's the other factories building the other components. On the other end of the supply chain, there are workers in the charging stations and the repair shops. Fewer cars to charge and fix will mean a lot of them will be out of a job, too. As if the youth unemployment rate here wasn't already bad enough. And guess what happens when all of those loans China's car makers took out to build so many cars can't be paid back? Those local governments are on the hook, too. They tried to outdo themselves in the EV car race by providing tax breaks, land deals, and other infrastructure for the EV factories. With most of those car companies set to go bust in the next 5 years, they're looking at a catastrophic loss of revenue. It wouldn't be so bad if it was just the EV disaster, but it's not. These governments are already suffering from China's bursting real estate bubble. So it's like taking a 1-2 on the chin they can't afford. Trillions of yuan are on the line here, too. Don't feel too bad for the banks and the local bureaucrats. There's at least a decent chance they will get bailed out by Beijing, although even Xi's coffers are getting a little shallow. How much money has it taken to cover the losses on his Belt and Road disaster again? Anyway, that guy that works in the repair shop, Xi isn't going to bail him out, that's for sure. Companies like BYD are doing the only thing they can and starting to cut back on production, but it's way too late. It's not even really their fault. They have the bad fortune to be part of China's economic model, growth driven by subsidies and propaganda. Across the Pacific, it's been a different story. Sure, EV incentives like tax breaks and even state-level bans on new gas-powered cars, like in California and Washington, get a lot of heat. But the growth rate in EVs in the United States has been steady, and it hasn't just been driven by tax incentives. Consumers have been more environmentally conscious, and these cars don't need as much maintenance as traditional gas-powered ones. They have less than 20 moving parts compared to the hundreds found in a gas-powered engine, so there's no need for oil changes, spark plug replacements, or exhaust system maintenance. And hey, those laws we talked about, California's doesn't kick in until 2035. Neither does Washington's. American consumers are buying EVs not only for a tax break, they're buying them because they have other advantages. But China didn't trust its consumers to know about the advantages and make an informed decision. It just decided it had to be at the front of the market. So China's EV miracle was propaganda all along. It came from a bubble machine, not reality. China didn't win the EV war, it buried itself in it. Now the EV graveyards are just getting started, the latest tombstones of China's economic miracle gone bad. So what will be China's next plan to escape the EV disaster? Your guess is as good as ours. Only one thing's for certain, Xi Jinping wanted his electric cars. Now he has them. What bubble do you think might be blowing up next in China? Solar panels? AI? Don't forget to let us know in the comments.